Nice to see you. Nice to see you all. Nice to see you all. On behalf of the Student Equity Work Group, it's my distinct pleasure to welcome you to the first event of the third event this semester for our Student Equity Speaker Series. My name is James Knoll, and I'm Dean of English and Equity Pedagogy. My pronouns are he, him, and I co-chair the Student Equity Work Group along with Dr. Sandra Nioki from Sociology. Each year, the Student Equity Work Group chooses a theme for our speaker series. In the past, we've had themes such as undoing injustice, rise by lifting, indigeneity and cultivating critical hope. This year, our theme is health justice, reimagining health and wellness. Health justice means organizing from the ground up, social change that transforms the current systems of neglect, bias, and privilege into systems, policies, practices, institutions that truly support healthy communities for all. While access to quality healthcare is crucial, health justice involves many more dimensions than the availability and distribution of healthcare. This session is being recorded, and even though we're in a virtual, this session is being recorded, and even though some folks are online, it's really important that we acknowledge that DVC is situated on the ancestral lands of the Bay Miwok people. We name the history of this beloved place as a gesture of respect and reparation towards the indigenous residents of the colonized land we now call home. We acknowledge the profound suffering caused by the theft and colonization of this land and grieve the ongoing systematic harm to Miwok culture, as well as to all the indigenous cultures of what we now call North America. We honor the Bay Miwok as the ancestral stewards of this land and are actively working to build the right relationship. Before handing over the program, I'm reminded to please fill out the survey. We have some paper versions on your seats, and there's also a URL. QR code available. And we also have some forms for extra credit as well. If you would like to watch last year's session or early events, you can find the recordings on our webpage. I now invite our Disability Support Service Officer, David Haggerty, to introduce our amazing speaker for today.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming out, for showing up online, as the case may be. I am here to introduce the speaker today. Matthew R. Mock, PhD, is a professor of psychology at the JFK School of Psychology of National University at the Pleasant Hill campus. He's also maintained a longstanding independent clinical and consulting practice in Berkeley with a specialty in multicultural identity, family relationships, and integrative care. He earned his BA from Brown University and a PhD from the California School of Professional Psychology, Alliant International University in Berkeley and San Francisco, where he still teaches a popular course on Asian American psychology. Dr. Mock received accolades and awards for his prior 20 years of work as the Director of Child and Family Mental Health Services for the City of Berkeley. He considers diversity and social justice to be his life's work, as continuous sources of passionate, deeply meaningful soul work. He is an author, mentor, and highly requested trainer. In October of 2019, he received his most recent award from the Asian American Psychological Association for distinguished contributions to psychology. As a third-generation Chinese American, he carries forward the pride of his ancestors. Before I turn over the mic, though, I did want to note briefly that there are counselors available both online and in person today. If you feel the need to speak to someone about anything that you hear here or anything that's causing you unrest. So without further ado, present Nancy Knox.
Great. Thank you so very much, everybody. I really appreciate your being in physical audience here and also online virtually. And thank you very much genuinely for the committee, the heavy lifting that's done by the Equity Committee, what you're doing in terms of heavy lifting in terms of staff and faculty here, but also students here. Would not be here if not for students, for what you represent in terms of who you are here now for this particular topic, and also what you will take away from this that you will spread on and to others in the community. So I appreciate you and I'm honored by that. I'm also humbled by it because you could have many other individuals up here individually addressing this topic. So I will humbly share what I can in the time that we have. Having said that, as David mentioned, as James referred to also, is that self-care is very important. And I want to reference that early on because even without this topic right now, these are current times when self-care has definitely been something that has needed to be emphasized ongoingly. So, okay. When David referenced, by the way, at the very end, reminding in 2019, I received the Asian American Psychological Association. They gave me Distinguished Contributions Award. I want you to know when I went up to receive the award, kind of like this, the first thing I said was, now I feel like I have to do something to earn it. Because to me, in part, the lifting that we do in our communities is never ending. And it's something that I think we need to all have strong shoulders to do heavy lifting. I apologize, if you will. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. I apologize to some of the trees, if you will, in that I did produce some materials for you to also take away, if not for yourself today, for colleagues and other classes that you will teach and passing it on to other students. That would be a wonderful dissemination of this information. So thank you. So today's talk is particularly on adverse childhood experiences. How many of you are familiar with the ACE? Worked with the ACE? Okay, good, good, good. So we'll talk more about that. And also the intergenerational experiences of stress and trauma, including cultural strategies for healing in community. Again, cultural strategies for healing in community. You can define it as you wish, but for right now, for here, healing within the DVC community. Right. So the first thing I want to do, I also want to acknowledge, this is an important slide for me in that I do a lot of work in terms of trauma and trauma training. I teach as a professor. I've been doing so for 35 years. There was one time when I was teaching, I was waiting for my watch for my award for teaching. I'm now waiting for my Fitbit. I still haven't gotten that, so goodness knows what it is. But ever since I was doing my early career, I've been working on issues of addressing trauma for individuals and families in context. What are those situations? What are those relationships? What are those systems issues that contribute to those traumas? And once they occur, are they equitable in terms of recipients of treatment, recipients of schooling, recipients of justice, recipients of healthcare? So these are things that I've taught and have trained in the past. The Bay Area Academy, I do that ongoingly. I also want to thanks and appreciate, and if you would for just a minute, I encourage you to spend a moment, because we always talk about the things that are traumatic, but the things that also can help us to do the lifting. Who do we acknowledge in terms of those that we appreciate, those that we dedicate our commitment to? Those that when we're tired or when we hear a situation that is truly traumatic, about how do we keep going? So I want to acknowledge prior work and current workers dedicated to wellness. I want to acknowledge the elders and ancestors in this hard work. When I'm at my office in Berkeley, I acknowledge the individuals that are of the Ohlone tribe, if you will, sitting on Ohlone lands. And when I go to Angel Island, which I recently took my graduate students to, I thank, if you will, the Miwok. That has very important origins for me, the I, if you will, in terms of this topic, because that's where my ancestors came from. That's where they came from China, coming to Angel Island in order to try to have a foothold on these lands. There are a lot of people who have informed us, inspired us, and individuals in situations that embody this. I want us to remember, maybe at the very end, if you would, for me, is this initial SCN. SCN. Okay, SCN. I have a very special person I acknowledge. Her name is Sharon C. Nim, if you will, as SCN. I'll reference that at the very end and why that's important for this topic. I also want to acknowledge that the last time acknowledging is related. I don't know if how many of you are interested in or have done some work with forensic work, but on March 11th, 2020, can't believe it's been over 3 years, if you will, as I gave this talk to about 250 people, we're talking about what does forensic mental health have to do? What does it have to do with trauma? What does it have to do with ACE, adverse childhood experiences? And what does this have to do with forensic mental health, right? And did you know that there are places that also states that if someone is incarcerated or someone is arrested and they are a minor, there are some states that actually mandate that those individuals, regardless of the charge, regardless of the crime, that they are assessed through the ACE. Because we want to find out why a child, why an adolescent, why a young person may have committed that crime. And is there something that may have been a constellation of events in their early life that may contribute to what it is that they have done? Okay. I referenced this topic, I referenced this particular slide in time because after I gave this talk, if you will, as I was walking back to the conference, he said it was a great presentation. It was wonderful. It was inspiring. I didn't know these new insights related to systems and inequities. But now everyone, we have to all go home because it's COVID. So this was my last big conference presentation before we had to go home because of COVID. I will never forget that. I also want to give you some additional references and resources. Some of them are in print in the back of the room for you to take. Again, please disseminate those to colleagues as well. Again, that is on the, these slides are for your taking in the back also in a collated packet. But individuals that you can carry on do the work. I particularly referenced the second one, supporting resiliency, promoting trauma-informed and resilience-oriented practices, programs and policies for healthcare centers, with Dr. Wolf Brisson, if you will. And then the last one is called Facilitating Therapeutic Health from Pervasive Trauma, Loss, and Social Oppression, which I presented with my colleague, Dr. Tim Baima, at a statewide conference. Acknowledgements. I have a deep, rich understanding for the ways in which our familiar ancestors' stories, including related losses and traumas, are relevant to our current cultural self-awareness through hearing and witnessing narratives presented to us as gifts. I have gratitude for having had multiple opportunities to explore my own related familial stories and ancestral histories, gaining a greater awareness of the gaps in my own narratives, for which I continue to crave increased knowledge. And lastly, I want to acknowledge I have respect and appreciation for understanding the importance of working collaboratively with diverse communities and nourishing relationships with insightful and empathic individuals and families to create ongoing, not just one and done, but ongoing context supportive of deepened generational identity work. David was very good about introducing me, but I also want to be mindful, and I will share publicly, is that a new introduction would be, I'm third generation Chinese American. I'm one of 7 children across a 14-year age span. My mom was working. My mother throughout my entire lifetime, if you will, started her sentences in Chinese, Samyep, a dialect of Cantonese, and finished them in English, or started them in English and finished them in Chinese. My mother really never understood what I did for a living. In fact, when I went away to Brown University, I grew up in Los Angeles, my mother didn't understand, and she was very upset. What? You're going as far as a long distance phone call? You can't do that. I'm going to lay down in front of the plane. I say that facetiously with a smile, but these were true things that were difficult for her to bear. I also want to acknowledge, if you will, when we were growing up in West Los Angeles, is that we were one of the few, you wouldn't think that now, but one of the few Asian families that were in that community. And I remember growing up a lot of times saying, why is it that I and my siblings, we're the only ones that look like this and nobody else resonates with us in that reflection. Those situations of loneliness, the situations of being an other, the situations of being from a big family without sometimes enough food to eat. These are all things that I know I'm referencing now publicly, that I grew up with. What impact do you think that has? Do you resonate with those stories? Do those things come up for you in terms of what your differences are, in terms of issues around having something less? That's part of this topic. So I want to acknowledge again how the personal informs the professional, or as a student, you as a future professional, as a healer, understanding how while adverse childhood experiences, again called the ACE, do occur, they do not absolutely determine future outcomes. So even though these might be events that happen to people, again, it's not casting, it's actually, in some ways you can look at it as, what are resiliency factors? What are wellnessy factors that keep that person going and actually do relatively well? We need to acknowledge that. We need to understand that, and we need to elicit that in our teaching, in our relationships, in our practices, okay? And then no matter what you do, I know some colleague here said you're involved in nursing, some other in biology, some maybe psychology. Any psychologists among us? Any psychologists potentially in the future? Okay, thank you for willing to admit it. Is that we want to recognize that those of us people have inspired us, that when we do this work that's related to this, about addressing the ACE, addressing intergenerational trauma, that it's not just our soul work, meaning it is not solely just what you do for a job, for pay, for benefits. It's because it's your soul work. It's deeply within your heart. It's deeply because it's something that you care about. It's something you have compassion for. And lastly, I say this for everyone, including for this topic, to walk away with this sense of, or try to generate, the Greater Good Center in Berkeley has done some research in saying this sense of awe, AWE, or awesome, seeing something that's beautiful, being in session with somebody who finds certain strengths, surviving certain traumas. That's amazing that you could do that. Really, that's amazing. Wow, I'm working with two clients who both have had a series of ACEs. They just had their first baby, if you will. And their sense of awe is off the charts. They've done amazingly well as a couple, the work that we've done addressing their social traumas. I'll skip a few slides, if you will. I want to get to. So objectives of this presentation are to raise awareness and understanding about adverse childhood experiences, the research and application. To raise awareness and understanding of the Center for Disease Control framework being implemented to prevent adverse childhood experiences, essentials for childhood safe, stable, and nurturing relationships and environments. To inform about how California and other states are moving forward with this ACE work using collective impact approach. You know Nadine Burke-Harris, of course, the first Surgeon General in California, transitioned from that, but you could look up and you could read and view her YouTube presentation on this. I want to reference a few slides just so that we can have a reference. Those of you who are in the room, and these may be copied and sent to those who are virtual, is that I have my own main presentation, which is what you're seeing. I did update it some, so just so you know that. There's also one that has this gentleman's head, if you will, and this is James Doherty. And the reason why I decided to, or Docherty rather, the reason I decided to just copy these slides and have them available to you is he's actually from Scotland, if you will. He's a mentor, and he's an individual who talks about his own personal experiences with adverse childhood experiences. And Scotland is one of the, if not the first entire country, if you will, to adopt the ACE, if you will, in their work. So that's why I wanted you to have that as well. The third one, in terms of diversity of presentations for you to have as a resource, both during and after, is this one called ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences. It has little children, if you will, holding hands coming out. And this is actually from Kansas, if you will. So this actually, I thought it was an interesting perspective also because it gives a sort of systemic, statewide, here's what the professions are doing, and also to have maybe a state that's in contrast to California. So Kansas, this is what they're doing and what they're finding. And what you'll find, that reference some of that, I think, is also confirming. Okay, so I just want to acknowledge that. The last that I also will maybe just reference on yellow sheet, those of you in the room, yellow sheet, there's this idea of the well-being wheel. And I have that as a resource. And what it has 8 different areas that acknowledging well-being is a state of thriving influenced by an individual's wellness and the communities to which they belong. So we need to tap into those sources. So if you have that in front of you, I think that's good to have as you hear some of these things or think about some of them or these triggers that might come up, just keep connected to some of the ideas around wellness, right? Those of you who are not in the room, things like wellness about what is your social network? Wellness, what is your spirituality? I was talking to my students, is that spirituality is not just religion, is it? It's not just religion, it is your faith. It could also be your moral tradition. What is your worldview about why things happen? Why things happen to you, sometimes that are adverse, but you can overcome it, or that you can actually continue to be resilient and healthy from them. So these are just areas for you to also wellness, for you to hold on to in terms of wellness as we proceed. So again, all too many slides, all too many different materials to present all in a short amount of time, but I give you this reference. And here's just potential reflection questions, which is just do as a sort of a mindful thought. Who and what experiences of ACEs and intergenerational trauma have been an influencing part of your journey in working in mental health or participating in mental health? Or are those things even asked about when you have been talking to someone about your health in general? What situation of inequitable treatment with a family of ACEs historical trauma comes to mind related to intersectional identity? Are you familiar with intersectional identity? There are handouts for you available as well, which I will reference. Do we all see the same thing? Let me just do something interactive just a little bit. I'm going to ask you to, let's see, just a little bit, put your hands in front of you. Put your hands in front of you. Those of you in audience, those of you in Zoom. I'm just going to ask you a question, if you will. And just with your fingers in front of you, without anybody else seeing, I want you to let me know the answer, if you will. And then I'll ask you to share in a minute. In this, do we all see, hear, feel, experience the same thing when it comes to adverse childhood experiences, or understanding and relating that intergenerational trauma does have an impact, does have an influence? Do we all see it? Do we know it? You see that sentence that starts with family files and ends in the word years? This should just be the big sentence here, if you will. Starts with family files. What I'd like you to do, don't say it out loud, I'd like you to count the number of F's. Count the number of F's in that sentence that starts with family files and ends the word years, right? Okay, and just with your fingers, if you will, put them in your lap, don't show somebody else, as you acknowledge how many the letter F's are there. Okay, okay, all right, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that, okay, don't show fingers yet, okay. So our agreements for this work is that for you to be fully present, for us to be respectful, if you will, to be patient with yourself and others, to listen with an open mind and heart, to suspend judgment, maintain confidentiality of others, embody cultural humility and what that means, to appreciate what it means to be truly PC. What does it mean to be PC? People say it means to be politically correct. I don't mean to be politically correct. Sometimes I worry. Someone says, okay, I won't say that because it'll insult you, it'll hurt you. But then outside of when I'm not listening anymore, they say the same thing. That's not what I mean by PC. We'll talk about that. And to remain ongoingly cognizant of ongoing self and other care as we discuss the ACEs and intergenerational trauma. Do we all see the same thing? Do we all hear the same thing? Do we all share the same thing? By the way, these learning agreements are proposed. Take these away with you to think about when you have other conversations with peers, with other students, right? And some of the classes that you have where these issues around their traumas or people, what they've experienced are things that you want to have dialogue about. You're lucky if you do have them. right? Okay. Do we all see here the same thing? If we can, so either you can stand up or raise your hand. How many of you, in terms of when I asked you about the number of Fs, how many of you saw one F total? Okay. How many of you saw two? One, two. Go ahead, it's okay. Hey, two. Really? How many saw three? Really? How many saw four? How many saw five? Really? How many saw six? Really? How many saw seven? How many saw eight? How many saw nine? If you saw nine, you should be at this workshop. You should be at a relaxation workshop. Isn't that interesting? Do we all see the same thing? Do we all see the same thing? Those of you online, variety of people, it went from 2 all the way to 6. I'll come back to why I say that. So visioning social justice, all of our survival is tied to the survival of everyone. That's why caring about what other people have gone through, caring about what they experienced, holding on to those things and providing a network for those individuals to seek care and have support is significant. I reference this when I do a lot of presentations. I like referencing different pieces. This is actually from a book called Revisioning Family Therapy. And as I'm preparing for this, I acknowledge this. It's about our stories including traumas. This is from chapter 36, Visioning Social Justice, Narratives of Diversity, Social Location, and Personal Compassion. I agree with 80% of what this author wrote. I'm pretty critical, so 80% is not bad. Actually, 80% is pretty good. It says this: our stories, including traumas, including adverse experiences, our stories are not always composed by us, but come to us in powerful ways from others. If as children, family members treat us or describe us in a particular way, these family stories often remain the same, no matter how we may try to change. What others believe about us, what we learn in school, in the media, and from the reactions of strangers begin to define our stories, and they sometimes impact our identities. They impact sometimes what we look to, our trajectories for the future. In searching for alternative narratives, about ourselves, we're often drawn to stories about others. Listening to these stories may offer us new possibilities. But if our new life stories, think about that, your new life stories are to fully emerge, we must also challenge the underlying myths, prejudices, and sometimes negative events that may attempt to limit us. Pretty good, applicable. Okay. It's good that I agree with 80% of that book chapter. I wrote that book chapter in 2005, and so I've written a new one last year, and actually I agree with 95% of the one I just wrote last year. Those of you, just to make it point clear, here's where finished files are. The point about this, I say, sometimes people will not get it, is that sometimes the way we read and speed read and what we learn, we just kind of go on with things, right? But we don't take time to think and say, wait, if I asked you to read it, maybe take a look at the sentence backwards, slow down. Maybe ask instead of asking, what's wrong with the person? Maybe asking, tell me a little bit about your early life. Rather than being a problem focused, maybe looking at what is the possibility focus, what may have contributed, rather than pathologizing, maybe having more humanity. So introduction, what are adverse childhood experiences? These are on your handouts. Adverse childhood experiences are 3 categories of childhood experiences of abuse, neglect, and family dysfunction. What is their impact? These incidents harm social, cognitive, and emotional functioning of children. So for young people, young human beings, if you will, this has an impact early in their life. It can be dramatic upset, the safe, nurturing environments children need to thrive. Have you always wondered, do you think, empathy? I'm going to show of hands for those who are empathy. Do you think empathy is something that all human individuals are born with? Is empathy something that's natural? Is empathy within every single person? Yeah. Okay. But what happens? Sometimes individuals who do horrendous things, gosh, do Do they have effort? What is it about them? What happened? Was it something that was biological that happened in terms of their birth or their genes or growth or whatever? Or did something adverse happen? Right. When I was at the Brown Study Center, I remember they used to have little babies, and this thing with a little baby, they'd be moving something, and all of a sudden maybe something would be moved away, and all of a sudden the child who had the object moved away would start crying. And without even words, one of the other children would like move that block back. And that's what I think was like, that's a sign of empathy. Even without words, there's acknowledging the emotions and the care for the other. So I think promotion of ACEs in particular acknowledges that we need to be more astute, we need to be more caring of acknowledging how these events impact individuals' lives. So adverse child experiences, this is a very important slide for a couple of different reasons, is we want to think about what it's based on. It was a collective effort of Kaiser Permanente and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. It was the largest study of its kind to examine the health, social, and economic effects of ACEs over the lifespan, over 17,000 participants. It examined again the past history of abuse, family dysfunction, and current health status. Is a retrospective cohort study of an HMO population with an average of 57 years. What's also, I think, important to note, which is oftentimes is acknowledged, is a couple of things, is that the ACE of the individuals that were studied, over 2/3 of them were highly educated, if you will, and over 2/3 of them was a higher income status, if you will. So income and education, again, it was not a quote unquote representative sample, I guess is the way to think about it. The ACE will also acknowledge it does not include racial trauma. Those of you who are interested or knowledge of that racial trauma, look up Janet Helms. She was just received another award, Dr. Helms did, from the American Psychological Association at Boston College, if you will. And it doesn't, it does not reference adequately intergenerational or historical trauma, going back not just childhood, but going back generations. And we'll get there with a slide talking about that. I like the work of Maria Braveheart, Dr. Braveheart, in terms of intergenerational trauma. So just be aware the adverse child experiences does not assess those areas I just referenced. ACEs questionnaire. Here are some areas: is physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, an alcohol or drug abuser in the household, an incarcerated household member. This is where I have to acknowledge in my own, I'm referencing the I. This is why I want to reference, if you will, the I, in terms of think about the systems of incarceration. It's an inequitable system, is it not? Who gets arrested? Who gets stopped? Who gets to have 3 strikes? So already, again, this idea about who gets incarcerated. So again, that is a potential traumatic experience for that child. Someone who's chronically depressed, mentally ill, institutionalized, or suicidal, expresses suicidal ideation. This one, in their studies, they found that sometimes potentially negative outcomes, if you will, would potentially come from a mother who is treated violently. I teach a whole course, of course, on child abuse, and acknowledging that sometimes the most challenging situations I've encountered working clinically is not someone who actually saw their mother being abused, but actually had the threat always put on them. If you don't do this, this will happen to your mother. And that actually is more psychologically disturbing to that child, to that now teenager, that now adult, than actual violence itself. So, well, either one or no parents. So that goes back to this idea about attachment, who gets connected, who gives that person grounding, who gives that person security. These are all things that are really important and acknowledge particularly early growth and early experiences. And similarly, again, not just physical presence, of course, but emotional or physical neglect are part of ACEs. On the right is actually the sampling of the parts of the questionnaire, the exact wording that you could also download or look online for yourself. And then again, this is how 3 types of ACEs lay out. Is under abuse, physical, emotional, sexual, and then under neglect, physical, emotional. And then what they refer to as household dysfunction or less than optimal health, if you will, is things like mental illness, incarcerated relative, mother treated violently, substance abuse, and issues around divorce or marital or parental discord lead to divorce. The impact, so this is what they see in terms of the research, is that in terms of behavior, what they see in the sample, what they saw, and they're continuing to research, is lack of physical activity. So it may mean in terms of being overweight or being to a point where the person is not having physical wellness. Behavior in terms of afterwards, in terms of smoking, alcoholism as a way of coping, maybe drug use and abuse. This is rampant in this country right now, and there's so much federal money that is being put to address drug abuse and use. Missing work, so not being reliable in certain situations where one's behavior is maybe needed for stability or consistency. And then under physical and mental health, again, goes with above. The first one is severe obesity or not taking care of oneself, diabetes, depression, suicide attempts, sexually transmitted diseases, and also behaviors of additional risk, heart disease, cancer, stroke, COPD. This is an interesting one. I thought just add to it is broken bones. And that must be the person who may be more accident prone, or one person doesn't take care of themselves or isn't more watchful in terms of their own self-care. So we all talk about issues around trauma. What is trauma? Trauma is centered in the individual experience. Trauma can have conscious or unconscious manifestations. The origin of trauma, a lot of times people think about it as whether one trauma or it has to be violent or abusive. Well, in fact, that's not the case. It could be a various series of situations. It could be a series of interactions. It could be a series of witnessing something, if you will. So be aware of that. What is trauma? Trauma is any negative life event that occurs in a position of relative helplessness. And again, I want us to use self-care and be mindful of the amount of time in this topic and your own self-care. These are mainly psychologists who've impacted me in my own work. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk has done this work for so many different generations. The body keeps score, brain, mind, body, and the healing of trauma. What's important, he, among others, I think referenced first, is that it's not just something that is imagined. It's not something just psychological, but it actually has biological consequences. It actually has something you could actually research, if you will, and see in the biology of individuals in terms of trauma. The body bears the burden, trauma dissociation disease by Robert Scare. And then this one, post-traumatic stress slave syndrome, America's legacy of enduring injury and healing by Dr. Joy Degree. Those of you, by the way, I'm a psychologist, so I'm familiar with the DSM. If anyone familiar with the DSM work? What does it stand for again? Diagnostic Statistical Manual, Text Revision 5, right? I say it, I teach it, train it. I say it also could stand for Dictionary of the Socially Maligned, Dictionary of the Socially Maligned, tried repeatedly and intravenously fed to new trainees. I say that because sometimes even there are things in there that are socially constructed, right? Drapetomania was a term that was in a, not the DSM, but it was in medical diagnosis, right? Drapetomania? What was that? Are you familiar with drapetomania? Drapetomania was a term that was coined in the mid-1800s, if you will, for slaves that ran away from their slave masters. Because they must be suffering from a mental disorder, because they needed to be treated by somebody, they needed to be cared for by somebody. Why would they want to run away? There was also a mood disorder when they actually rebelled against their slave masters. And Dr. Cartwright, general physician at that time, said, oh, that must be their disorder. That shows how sick they are. There was also gender identity disorder, right, as well. Homosexuality was also a disorder. Okay. So again, I say these things because even these things that related to differences when the person is not treated equally, particularly when they're young, creates certain amount of adverse childhood experiences. So I'm not going to go over many of these slides. And obviously my coffee throat is telling me that I maybe need to not speak as much as well. But just I wanted to show you a few slides related to this impact of trauma, if you will, in terms of what the research shows. And this just shares with you a little bit about what are the things that they actually can see physically. Well, actual changes in skin texture or tone, muscle protein breakdown, hormonal imbalance, increased cortisol. So these are things that are actually measurable, tangible medical measures. Those of you interested in the brain, amazing, is that impact on the brain itself, on the cortex, which is our thinking, limbic system, feeling, the brainstem, which is our breathing, if you will. So when trauma, the last point, when there's no time to think, when facing threat, our brains shift control over to the limbic system and automatic nervous system. So there's a lot of complexities going on when a person is encountering those actual adverse childhood experiences. This is a switch again, acknowledging I don't want to leave out, and when I said I would give this talk, to definitely acknowledge intergenerational trauma. Within the field of traumatic stress, intergenerational transition of trauma was first observed in 1966. This is with the individuals that were survivors of the Holocaust. Scientists were alarmed by many children of the Holocaust seeking treatment. At that time, it was a Canadian study. Others in the US studied the second generation of survivors, even those that had not experienced the Holocaust, but actually were born in the United States, if you will, after fleeing and surviving, that they were showing signs, if you will, of traumatic stress. This has led to an ongoing focus on transmission of pathological intergenerational processes to the third and succeeding generations. I just published a piece, actually, I'm working with another colleague who's working with Native American, Native and indigenous communities, and acknowledging, if you will, the intergenerational trauma that they've experienced, if you will, and needs to continuously be researched in terms of how it impacts, if you will, substance abuse, how it impacts violence, how it impacts, if you will, domestic violence, how it impacts suicidality and drug use and abuse. Amazing things that are done in terms of trying to heal the intergenerational trauma that's impacting current and even recent generation individuals. So again, I just like to show this in terms of acknowledging that toxic stress. So think about this. I think about it this way. Even on this beautiful day today, thank you, Planning Committee, for making us a beautiful sunny day for the presentation today. But even on this beautiful day today, there's pollution in the air, right? No matter what, little particles. Maybe we can't see them as much because it's rained or whatever, but no matter what, there's a little bit, right? So I always say that with regards to the ACE, or think about it's not about if, but if you will, to what degree. Because I always say issues around racism, issues around sexism, issues around heterosexism, issues around ageism, issues around classism. They're not just one and done things. They're happening all the time. And so they impact individuals differentially, right? And that's why this one of my favorite handouts, this one that's in the back also, is understanding intersectionality, right? It has an individual. Joey is a white youth with a learning disability who's eligible for free and reduced lunch services due to a family income below the poverty line. So he grew up with one parent below poverty, and because of his socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, and his different ability, if you will, he's been additionally struggling. It's not just one and one and one, but it's actually multiplied, right? So that's really important to acknowledge intersectionality, right? Okay. Whereas Amira is a Muslim youth of refugee status who identifies as gay. That is his intersectional challenges that he, she, they have. So again, the result of multiple traumas is you see some of these ways in which they might show up, the reason they might appear. Again, if these are some of the things that you yourself or colleagues, if you will, that to be aware of how these might manifest. And then I want to move a little bit after just this list. You can look at it on your own. I have all too many slides and materials. Again, I teach this as a whole course and more. Consult on this ongoingly. Is what about the result of multiple traumas is when the brain is under the influence of an emotion, It habitually makes connections to past events that triggered the same emotion. Okay, so be aware of the tenacity, if you will, sometimes of some of the adverse experiences. So this is where I'm trying to also acknowledge, if you will, what I consider to be healing. It's one of my favorite slides, if you will, in that I've always taught about issues around how do you address issues when you're not of the same background of the person. You've expressed traumas as well, but you're of a different race, gender, sex orientation. We're never the same as the clients or individuals or the students that we work with or our peers. And so what I say, we talk about wanting to be culturally responsive to that individual. To me, this is the road to get there. And it's I say it facetiously because if you don't address the boulder in the middle of the road, you'll never get there. And the road is curvy. It's not a straight line. Just tell me what it is about Asians. Tell me what it is about Latinos. Tell me about what it is for gay people. Tell me what it is for those that are disabled, and I'll do it. No, there's not such a thing. It's not a straight line. It's something that is curvy, that has challenges, that it has to take time, effort, and energy to get there. And we need to acknowledge the boulder, and the boulder is isms. The isms that cause blockades. Isms that sometimes attempt for us to not see things, to not be aware of things, to think that we know when we don't really know. Okay. So I want to bring in ideas about social justice related to addressing ACE and intergenerational trauma, is that we need to foster individual and organizational cultural competence using a social justice framework and an equity lens, as per the committee, the amazing work that they've done and presentations that they've done ongoingly and will continue, to address issues of power, privilege, and oppression within our practices, our clients' lives, our students, our peers, and relevant organizational systems with generational histories. I'm going to skip a few slides. I want to acknowledge yourself, if you will, in terms of how you engage your students, how you engage your peers in discussions around the very thing I'm presenting today. And think about yourself as healers, even if not professionally. The presence of your whole self, there's you, there's your spiritual self, emotional self, physical health self, social self, academic self. These are things that you bring and you bring to others. You can show up in many different ways to talk about ACEs, to address some of these things, your body, mind, heart, and spirit. How your own experiences, that's why I tried to reference at least a little bit of some of my own background, how your own experiences, generational family history, and awareness interact with other individuals' experiences and awareness. How will that come into play? How will you use that? Will that shut you off? Will that make you feel a little bit more close to that person? Will that person maybe feel more included by you because they see you in the mirror and vice versa? I'm going to skip again a few slides, being aware of our time, and open up for more interaction. So again, well, it's more important to understand what intersectionality does. So that's when, again, when the person has multiple identities, if you will, that are sometimes facing systemic oppression or as treated as less than. And intersectionality sheds light on the ways in which some people within social groups receive benefit while others are disproportionately targeted and constrained by certain social structural situations. Our social location matters, for example, in the therapy, supervision, or teaching relationship and learning situation. Social advantage and power are part of the dynamics involved. Assumptions are embedded in our identities, and while we may aspire to be aware of them, such as through cultural humility, many are implicit and out of our consciousness. Okay. I just like this slide as well. This is what I talked about in terms of pollution. Who I'll reference this is that these are, to me, kind of a visual, I wish it was more three-dimensional, but acknowledging parts of yourself. Spiritual self, intrapsychic self, physical self, immediate family, extended family, friends and community, large society. Then across, you think about things that may have happened. Think about ACEs here, maybe in terms of adverse childhood experiences, maybe things that happened early on, and how they impact different aspects of the self. And some of which the self may know, right? The person may know, physically the person was abused, but then maybe friends and community know or don't know. Or maybe something happened individually when maybe the person is chronically homeless and all of a sudden that it's impacted by larger awareness of others. So here, these are particular life events that may happen a certain timeline, right? Then there are vertical stressors. Vertical stressors are things, if you will, that have no particular time base, but clearly have an impact. So things like racism, sexism, classism, homophobia. So think about these things are always in the air. You're breathing them all the time. So someone says, like, I work with a lot of different individuals of different backgrounds, say, I'm a person Latino. Says, no, I've never experienced racism. Say, really? Then all of a sudden we move to another topic, and all of a sudden the first thing they talk about is a situation of being treated differently because they're Latino and because their first language is Spanish, not English. But they didn't recognize it, at least at that point, at racism. We talk about it and that validation, if you will. Finally, that person gets invigorated and says, now I understand it. Now someone has labeled it. Someone has actually talked about it. And now that student is doing much better in their class with more pride of who they are. So we want to be aware of these things that impact the toxicity, if you will, of individuals and their wellness. Speaking of wellness, I want to move to those slides and then maybe more open it up. Visiting social justice, narratives of diversity and personal compassion, because ultimately our humanity depends on everyone's humanity. You know, one of the things I'll never, when I was trained, I originally wanted to be a special ed teacher, and actually I wanted to be a poet and a short story writer. And then after 2 quarters at Brown, when I was reading my materials, I said, you know, rather than being a writer, a short story writer, children's story writer, I better find another profession soon because my stories are not that good. Actually, I read them recently; they're not that bad. I think I'll go to that eventually. Maybe at least writing children's stories. But what I was going to say in that regard is that when I was growing up, I remember really wanting to be sure that everybody was included. I remember early in my psychology class, they said, you know what? One of the things that's really seems to correlate, if you will, with wellness in regards to who one is social inclusion. When one feels socially included, if you will, that correlates with their well-being. Not just included like, oh, you included as part of a group, but you matter, you contribute, you are a part of society. We value what you bring, even though it's different than what I bring. You know my point? So the point being is even those individuals that have been impacted adversely, or those that are quote unquote mentally ill or have mental health challenges, if you will, the fact that they're still included and are an important part of society is something to be valued and honored. So how do we acknowledge, if you individuals, to have lifelong, authentic, and deliberate learning about all aspects of the whole self, including those that are sometimes difficult, including how inequities in treatment have shaped our identities and our perceptions of ourselves and others. Our personal narratives do matter. So that's what the ACE, I think, has really done. It's really brought out more voices, really brought out, let's talk about these. Let's bring out how to give language to some of these areas that previously maybe have been shaming or have been embarrassing or not wanted to be talked about. And to definitely talk about them more in sensitive ways. And this is what one student actually, who I worked with, left me and wrote this to me. He was forced to come see me. He was mandated, or he would be kicked out of school. And this, in the very end, is what he wrote to me. And I'll start to transition from this, talking about wellness, and then we'll open it up. He writes this: please hear what I'm not saying. Don't be fooled by me. Don't be fooled by the face I wear, for I wear a mask. I wear 1,000 masks, masks that I'm afraid to take off, and none of them are me. But I don't tell you this. I don't dare. I'm afraid to. I'm afraid you'll think less of me and that you'll laugh, and your laugh would just kill me. I'm afraid that deep down I'm nothing. I'm just no good. And that you will see this and reject me. So I play my game, my desperate pretending game, with a facade of assurance without and trembling child within. And so begins the parade of masks that my life becomes a front. I idly chatter to you in suave tones of surface talk. I tell you everything that's really nothing, and nothing of what's everything, of what's crying within me. So when I'm going through my routine, do not be fooled by what I'm saying. Please listen carefully and try to hear what I'm not saying. This is a young man who grew up in 5 foster homes, if you will, was severely abused and abandoned when he was young. Probably one of the youngest persons I've ever thought of that I treated that actually tried to commit suicide at a very young age, starting at age 8, then at age 12, and age 15. This is a child who also threatened other people, and that's why I worked with him rather than anyone with my agency. And this, after the work that we had done, he was kind to give this to me in acknowledgement of the work that we had done. And after he had finished, if you will, getting his degree from Cal Berkeley, if you will, he continued his trajectory in getting his doctorate, if you will, in working with others who were traumatized, if you will. And he is now in the medical field, doing quite well, treating others like himself. So a little bit about, I'm going to open it up, if you will. These are slides, if you will, and please, please, please continue. Those of you who came in, use self-care. This is from my presentation that I did at a larger conference that was about specific individuals, about losses. And so this is one of the things I showed about this particular individual, that sometimes losses of children are impacted by how parents treat them. The parallel is, think about students, and when they talk to you about some of the things that they have been through, how do you treat them? How do you treat their disclosure of that information? So issues around understanding, giving them a sense of purpose, understanding and referencing, if you will, guilt and disappointment that might come up, sometimes feeling overwhelmed, but ultimately coming back and giving individuals support to not feel alone, that they feel belonging. Tasks of grief, sometimes with regards to issues of trauma, this idea of shared acknowledgement of the reality of losses, if in fact it's a lost parent or a lost expectation, lost family, sharing grief experiences with them, including rituals, sometimes open communication, reorganizing the family system, transforming rules and roles. So that maybe if they did not have somebody who was caring, that there could be someone else. How many of you think about you've had a mentor or somebody else who has supported you, almost like a pseudo family member? That's been important. So maintaining connection with them, if you will. I feel fortunate. I've been mentoring many, many students who have sometimes come back and told me that they received some things that they wish they also maybe had more of when they grew up. I feel very fortunate about that. So again, because of time, these are other things that you can look to, but this acknowledges, if you will, what are some of the challenges that come up when when individuals face adverse childhood experiences. And then we'll come back to where we need to be, if you will, what helps. Compassionate attention, seeing things as they are, including suffering and injustice, with a discerning capacity to suspend action or judgment en route to uninterrupted presence. So sometimes even just allowing a space for the person to be heard and to be seen and continue to be treated well, treated equally as a human being that deserves wellness. I'm going to skip these if you will, because of time. You can look at those at your leisure. These are things when I teach a course on historical trauma, about the impact of marginalization and social oppression. We should never forget these images that are disturbing and concerning. These are slides, the next slides, if you're tracking, are the ones that have to do with inequities in systems, including foster care. Look at who's in foster care. Individuals, if you will, individuals in foster care, particularly African-American, Hispanic, Latino. This is in New York City. Racial disparities in systems, schools, right? Early on, what are the messages? Do they try to change the early impact of disparities, or do they further perpetuate them? This is why this is a very complex issue and one that we need to take on. So I'm honored that you're here and that you're listening to this. And unfortunately, we get all too many reminders, including recent years. Not that it's been only in recent years, but ongoing. Again, use self-care. Criminal justice system is one system that I hope some of you are willing to work in and would be willing to work in the future and continue, even if you're not formally doing so. Racial disparities in prisons and jails, women's incarceration patterns. If you take a look at individuals, I had an individual who said, I would never work with individuals who are in jails because I'm interested in child abuse. The only internship she was able to get was working in a prison. And she started working there and she found out, my God, when I start talking to some of these individuals in prison, particularly adolescents who are in lockup, the number of those individuals who actually had experiences of child abuse is striking. It's phenomenal to me. I need to work as a psychologist. She's now in her 16th year working at a very difficult prison setting with adolescents. So lastly, we're just, I started, maybe I'll start wrapping up on this, is ACEs, if you will, to consider providing consultation to professionals in schools, healthcare settings, spiritual settings where communities are at home, if you will. This is more for providers, again, if you will. If you treat children, obtain training and development in culturally appropriate evidence-based and community-defined or practice-based, sometimes generational therapies for child trauma to effectively treat children who do not recover on their own. By this slide, what I mean is that sometimes people say only do evidence, that is something that's done by controlled studies. Well, if we wait for controlled studies, what works for people of color, if you will, like myself, Asian Americans, Latinos, African Americans, Native Americans, tribal Americans, they'll never be understood because it's not been at an evidence base. That's why we say practice-based evidence or community-defined evidence of what works, of what heals. Okay. ACEs and intergenerational trauma recommendations include providing education and hope and giving, match care to child and family needs and phase of recovery, and relational sources of strength and resilience. Understand child and family cultural perspectives, past reactions, and their interventions. The systems themselves can be traumatic. So just be aware of that when you're assessing somebody or working with somebody new coming into programs. And then lastly, if you will, be certain to take care of yourself. Engage in your self-care through emotional, physical, and spiritual care. Know your limits and of your own family stories. Right? Virginia Satir says, always do your own family work. Because if you don't do your own family work, if you will, then it creates a blind side. And by doing your own family work, you'll have more compassion for those that you're trying to heal. Okay. And then watch out for secondary signs of your own secondary stress, burnout, exhaustion, numbing, distancing, so on and so forth. And lastly, we just say trauma-informed practice. More and more people talk about trauma-informed practices in so many different settings, encompasses all the culturally responsive practices we engage in with a keen awareness of our diverse child and families' traumatic experiences and their effects on their well-being. We're intentional to promote environments of healing, empowerment, and recovery rather than practices that may hinder and re-traumatize. The true meaning of what it means to be PC in our work is not to do things because they're politically correct, but I propose to do things that are PC because we want to be personally and professionally compassionate. Personally compassionate, professionally compassionate. Because we may have not experienced those same experiences of the adverse child experiences or of trauma, but again, we can be personally compassionate with that individual, with that person, with that family, to be able to understand them and hold them in what they have to say. Okay. Six informed principles, start to wrap up on this, is safety, trustworthiness, and transparency, having peer support, relational storytelling. Storytelling is, to me, a gift, and it's also, it has people intersect. Collaboration, mutuality, and sharing is significant. Empowerment, to give the person voice and choice. We always have this idea that we never work for individuals, but we work with them. What does that mean? That person is in control of their own destiny and their own voice, rather than us presuming that we take it over. And to understand cultural and historical and gender issues. Okay, never forget history. I think in this country, I think we tend to do that. There are movements afoot to try to eliminate those. I will speak from my place. I think that again further perpetuates this idea that of false equity. Well, that is not the case. This is a country that's built on a lot of inequities, and we need to address them rather than dismiss them. Okay. And then lastly, 3 systems promote resilience: capability, attachment and belonging, community, culture, and spirituality. This is also a separate slide, if you will, or separate handout for you, is look at these systems: a capability, a positive self-view of efficacy; attachment and belonging, friends or romantic partners who provide a sense of security, belonging, help with emotion and coaching; community, culture, and spirituality. I think that's something that you want to embody here, and as the committee and all are working very hard to have that be part of the DVC community here. This network of supports and services is an opportunity to help others, and to have cultures providing positive standards, expectations, rituals, relationships, and supports. And again, this is not one and done. So I'll end on this so I can open it up. The real difficulty in changing the course of any enterprise lies not in developing new ideas, but sometimes escaping old ones. This idea about that we should not talk about these issues, we should eliminate them, they're not a part of the person's presence, is not true, that we need to bring them into the room in some ways, and in a sensitive way and in a caring way. And lastly, how might we honor so? This is for a different piece. To survive the past, let it touch you, let it be acknowledged, and then to be able to move on from the past. Last thing I want to say is that as I wrap up and open it up, is that this is April. May is Asian American Pacific Heritage Month, which matters a great deal to me. May is also Mental Health Awareness Month, if you will. So in the back of the room, if you know this, is that there's something called the California Community College School Mental Health Program, if you will. It's all online, if you will. And I was able to develop a resource many, many years ago related to school mental health, including community colleges, all 106 community colleges across the state, for mental health wellness, if you will, resources, information, issues around cultural issues. It's in the back of the room. There's also one that's also available for disability services as well as African American, Latino, Native American, LGBT communities as well. So the point being is, for you in the room, for those of you outside of the room, those of you who are online, virtually, if you will, these are resources that you can continue to build and look to, and also disseminate to your friends, your colleagues, co-workers, and more in the community. So that, I went beyond what I had thought or was told I could go to, but I appreciate you, and I'll open it up for any thoughts, any comments, if you will. Thanks so very much.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I really appreciated that there was a lot to take in there. One thing I was curious about is what have you seen? You were talking about healing happening in community and encouraged us to think about healing happening at DVC and the community that we work and study in. And I was curious, what have you seen in terms of how institutions have been able to incorporate this framework and employ it in our work?
Yeah. Well, let's see how institutions have been able to incorporate ACEs. Well, first of all, I mean, Nadine Burkhardt, what she's also done is like any kind of related assessments that she's done in terms of medical assessments, also to have these also more psychological questions also asked, so just rather than just physical ones, to have them also asked in terms of relationships. So I think that's very, very significant. I think it's also what I've done in other community agencies and programs. You know, I was involved in community mental health for the city of Berkeley for a number of years. I was a director of child and family services. And I remember for the longest time, we would wait for families to come into my clinic. And that would be the only place where we would serve them, if you will. And I proposed that was too late. I said, well, it's good to do it, but that was when people were symptomatic. I'd rather go out to the community. I'd rather go out to the community and educate them about these issues and do it in a more preventative way. So at that time, this is a number of years ago, but I know it's continued, is that we started a health center at Berkeley High School. And so what we did was we actually went and took these issues to the schools and then said, well, we can talk these things to some of the classrooms. So in terms of the wellness, in terms of biology or so on and so forth, and that students have to take, or some of the issues that we have to take, we should actually bring them there into the classroom and maybe use that rather than have them come to the clinic when they're symptomatic. Let's talk about it in an educational way. And let's develop some prevention strategies. Let's talk to some of the athletic coaches and have them be aware of this. Because sometimes people will talk to their coaches. They will talk to their mentors. They will talk to their peers. They won't talk to a psychologist. Forget that. They'll talk to a community member. So we would do that. We would actually go out to other centers and programs to do that. And I think that's being done now also as part of ACEs, taking it out into the community to where people would be more listening and people would be more responsive in a way that's not stigmatizing. So.
Matthew, there's a question online, I think that closely dovetails with that. From Quinn, what are your thoughts about addressing these issues by building them into public school curriculums in an age-appropriate manner through the public school years?
I think Quinn was going to fold out the strategy to be able to do that as well. So, no, I think that is excellent. I think that should really become more of a norm, if you will. And I worry, but I think California, by the way, by the year 2025, if you will, there's got to be a school curriculum, high school curriculum on not social justice. I'm sorry, but it's on cultural diversity, right? Ethnic studies, thank you, ethnic studies. Ethnic studies is now a requirement by the year 2025, there must be. So to include some of these issues as well, around traumas, racial issues, differences, so on and so forth, is one area where it's got to be put in, it's got to be done, if you will. See, one of the things I think that for a long time that also allows ACEs not to be addressed is issues around stigma and shame. And issues about stigma and shame are a cultural issue. I don't talk about my stuff, right? And I'm not going to go talk to somebody because I'm not crazy. But are you going to tell me things that hurt me? Sure. But nobody has ever told me that those are related to the way I am. There must be something about me because I'm sick or I'm deviant. No, I'm not. These are things that happen to you. And we want to understand why. And you're doing amazingly well and you're amazingly resilient. So I think this idea about including them and normalizing them as a matter of discourse, of course, it's got to be done delicately. It's got to be done with confidentiality. It's got to be done with respect and sensitivity. But I think it would actually totally open up the dialogue even more. Instead of mental health, when you think about mental health, more times than not, people think, illness, pathology, rather than mental health being something that is something we should all have, and we all need to bolster. We all need to address. Thank you. Yes, you've been wanting to say thanks.
So unfortunately, I missed the start of your presentation, but from what I've heard, it's very touching. It's very beautiful how you want to intervene at an earlier stage through education before these issues become symptomatic, as you describe them, and things that people have no means of dealing with. So I just want to commend you on that. That's very good. With the ethnic studies program, I wanted to add that it emphasizes a lot of the self-actualization of students. I was in the inaugural class of ethnic studies in high school.
Oh, really? Good.
Yeah, last year.
Cool.
So what I read about is the power structure between the power dynamic between a teacher and a student needs to kind of come down for that to be effective. So it's the ethnic studies pedagogy piece I read said that for it to be effective, teachers need to be vulnerable in sharing their experiences and their ideas of this as well, rather than just teaching it. They need to be active participants in it if they expect students to feel the same and reciprocate. Yes. And I'd like to give you an opportunity to respond to that, but also I wanted to ask, similar to the institutional questions of how we can incorporate this framework, I wanted to ask if there are any ways we can institutionally incorporate the framework or the idea of capability, whether it be at a government level or, like you said, through education. Because I'm studying right now how positive liberties and the capabilities that our governments grant us freedom can empower us to be more emotionally intelligent and intellectual people.
The last part, maybe I'd like to have you comment maybe more about that. Maybe we could open up to others as well. But by the way, I don't know, you were a little bit, you missed the first part a little bit late, if you will.
Yeah, I was
Meeting with a federal judge at your high school. I think that's a legitimate reason to be late. I think so. Or what's it? I wouldn't say late, on time for me, or on time for this.
Another question. I picked up a lot of the resources in the back
Yeah.
of the room, but are there any publications or extra resources I could look at? Like, are these slides going to be published online, or do you have any pieces I can read?
Oh yeah, the slides are in the back.
That's okay. That's all the slides.
Yeah, and by the way, but you're referencing, I'm telling you, my name is Matthew, by the way, yours is
I'm Aiden.
Aiden?
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Aiden, nice to meet you as well. Is that this idea about when you teach, if you will, you said sometimes the teachers, because of, let's say in the ethnic studies,
They have to have a level of vulnerability in themselves if they want students to feel comfortable and benefit from the vulnerable teachings. And what you said, you have to approach sensitively, but
Yeah.
if you want it to be an open thing that students can benefit from, the piece, I think it's called Towards an Effective Ethnic Studies Pedagogy. It encourages teachers to be vulnerable and be active participants in a conversation with the students rather than a measurement of them.
You're Aiden. Aiden, your presence here is a gift to me. 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 I literally, the reason I was listening to you is that after I leave here, I have a book chapter, if you will, that I'm just having to edit and push back with my editor. And it's called Relational Social Justice. Looking in the mirror with others bearing witness. Looking in the mirror with others bearing witness. My point being is when I would teach on social justice related to equity work, normally 10 years ago, it would be like, okay, here's how I teach social justice. Here's how I teach about an working with ethnic population community. But now, since then, or not since then, but I come to understand that is not the effective way. The effective way is that you can, but you also have to look in the mirror. You have to be accountable to the very people that you're working with. You have to be very accountable if you're not Native American and you're talking and trying to address these issues. If you're not Latino, if you're not LGBT, if you haven't been abused, but yet you're trying to teach about it. There's something about being on the outside, right? Rather than, wait, I am not that person. I have certain information, if you will, from an outsider perspective. Let's talk about this. What do you think?
So you need to analyze your own relationship with these ideas and systems that.
I would feel so, because otherwise, if not, you're perpetuating the same power inequities, I think, that are at play in a larger context. Oh, you think you know? You don't know.
It's like a delimitation of education almost, here's my experience as a reference for what my teachings mean. It's putting the instruction in a more subjective lens rather than acting like an educator is it tears down that power dynamic by treating an educator as a person.
Yeah, I have lots of stories. I'll never forget intergenerational trauma. Have you ever been to Lake County? Go up to Lake County. It's probably beautiful. Lake County, it's a Pomo area. There are lots of reeds and everything up there. It's amazing. I was giving a training on there on cultural issues. This is many, many years ago in Pomo country. And during the break, if you will, the lunch break, if you will, they had actually had Pomo individuals do a ceremony during the lunch hour. Yeah. And then afterwards, they said, okay, time's up. We're going to get back to Dr. Mock. I'm not sure I've been to Lake County. Ain't many Asians up there. But you've been to Lake County, there are many, many Pomo up there. That is native Pomo land. And I said, no, this doesn't make sense. You have them step aside and me come back? That doesn't make sense. So I asked the Pomo leader, I said, if you wouldn't mind, if you will, coming back and having us do a circle and do a dialogue. So the coordinators let me do it, because I said I wouldn't do it otherwise. So I said, hey, have an Asian guy come here, talk about diverse issues. You should have people who are bearing witness, so part of the community be here. I'll never forget. I still have contact with those individuals. You know, we did that, then did it for about an hour and a half after we had a conversation, that people were asking things that they wouldn't have otherwise have asked. Anyway,
Yeah.
you get me excited. You can tell me inspired about things and get passionate. I try to break stereotypes. Two stereotypes are, Christina will remind me of this, I'm not very good at electronic things. That's the first stereotype. And the second stereotype is that I try to be passionate about things. It's supposed to be a joke, passionate. Asian men are not thought about as being passionate, so.
That's,
Thank you.
wow.
Thank you.
That's an unfortunate stereotype.
Thanks. Yeah, I do. I agree. I have you sign the petition, so. Someone else, yes. Beware time, yeah. Okay. Thanks, yeah.
So Lucille asked, how would you say pathologizing mental health has affected the way that we as a community institution interact with it?
Say one more time, how?
How would you say pathologizing mental health has affected the way we as a community and institution interact with it?
I think if I understand what's commented, I think we still have a long ways to go. I think we've gotten better in terms of opening up voices, of telling people that it's like on a continuum of things, rather than saying either people are mentally healthy or mentally ill. If they're mentally ill, you know, and go back to that time when people were institutionalized or told to go away, or they're not a part of society anymore. Where I think there's more inroads and understanding, if you will. And I think one area that I think has made it better also for particular cultural communities, I have particular expertise. There was one time that I was asked to try to work in all 58 counties to address mental health stigma among all the different cultural communities across the state of California. That was the good news. The bad news was that I was asked to try to address disparities around mental health stigma across all the entire state. But after a while, some of the conversations that came up were very important about, for example, Latinos who said, no. If you call it about mental illness, no se loco. I'm not crazy. But if you talk about it, issues around, imbalance of body, or if you talk about it because of issues around trauma related to immigration that I've never been able to talk about, or susto, or ataque de nervios, that is something that I can talk about because it's something that is me. It's my culture. It's not about somebody else imposing something on me that I'm crazy and don't belong. Okay. Same thing among Asian Americans all the time. Research shows like in more integrative care, if you have not just treat the mind, but also you treat it part of a body. Maybe it's someone's belief system. Maybe it's because they think that an imbalance of yin yang, that would be my mother, if you will. That no, I can relate a little bit more. Oh, I can do that, and I can do that, and the medication, and this and that. And I can do other things structurally. Okay, I can do this with my teacher. Sure, I can do that. That's great. These are multiple things that I can do, and I don't feel like I'm losing control or losing my mind. You're giving me more tools to work with. So we have a ways to go, though. We have a ways to go, though. I go back a long time, by the way, and I'll even critique our own profession. In October of last year, the American Psychological Association, who's been around for 100 years, they actually came out with an apology, right? They came out with an apology that they had promoted racism. And they actually documented all the different areas in which they had done that historically, in which ways they did that by promoting certain things in terms of intelligence, in terms of belonging, in terms of what's normal. A lot of us have different ethnic organizations. I say that with some respect for the American Psychological Association to admit that we refuse to accept their apology. Because he said the amount of damage that's been done all these decades, and we need you to do more. We need you to take action to reverse that, to actually address this, because that in of itself is traumatic. Because when someone comes up and says, I want help, and you come back and say it's your pathology, and we will only treat you in this way, that again has caused damage that still needs to be corrected. So, thank you. Thank you for the thoughtful question. Others. So appreciate you, particularly on this nice day.
Thank you. I'm curious if you have any opinions about the potential for MDMA for PTSD, treating PTSD with MDMA, treating trauma with MDMA, and if you think that has any part in addressing trauma in society.
I'm sorry, addressing PTSD with.
Oh, I'm using so MDMA assisted therapy for PTSD.
Not, I have to pause on that because I'm not as so fully versed with MDMA. Have you? Yeah, are you familiar with that? Might you say more?
Yeah, it's
curiosity for others.
It's so there's a lot of studies being done through the FDA currently using this compound called MDMA, which helps people process trauma in a therapeutic context. It allows people to recount their trauma without being reactivated by it, and it's a really helpful tool.
Oh, okay, MDMA. Yeah, I'm not so averse to it. See, always there's something that's new being developed or something that's coming out. So I would, thanks for that additional.
We're basically at time, but if someone else has a question, why don't we wrap up with one last one?
My question is, thank you very much for such a wonderful presentation. But on regards to treatment, I don't know if you know something about TMS and treating mental health. I mean, mental treatments for with TMS. I don't remember now the words exactly. It's an electrical nerve sensation.
Yeah, again, I don't know.
No.
You know, it's it. I laugh. I don't mean it. I really appreciate your question.
I know, but it's called TMS. I know it's
transmagnetic, transmagnetic something. Yeah, I don't know small. What, and I unfortunately I don't have an answer for you for that, but we shall look that up. Whatever. One of the things that I think we do in this community, by the way, that I correct my students a lot, is that we deal with acronyms. And sometimes I think acronyms like TMS, what does that stand for? MDMA, what does that stand for? I remember getting a child who was at an IEP meeting, and we was at the IEP meeting. They said, "Oh, well, your son has either ODD or maybe has ADHD, and maybe he can come to a treatment after PE at the clinic." And I was going like, and then the mother like signed off on it like right away, like, "Oh yeah. Do you know what you just signed? Do you know what they actually acknowledged just your student has?" No. I was just told to go in. If I want to keep the child in school, I would just sign it. Oh, they said that your son has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or he has oppositional defiant disorder, or, and by the way, they're going to give you these instruments and these tests. You need to understand what it is. It turns out that English wasn't your first language even. So. Just reminded me, I don't have an answer for you, but just a reminder of how even we're anachronistic, we're acronyms, and then we think that people understand it where they don't. We need to actually reach out to them and talk about it at the level in the ways that that's accessible to them. So, thank you. All right.
Well, I want to thank you for coming in today, Dr. Mock. It's a pleasure listening to you. And thank you also to the audience for participating in person and online.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
I'll let James Knoll finish off with a comment, I hope, about upcoming events.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. Thank you for that insightful presentation. Thank you all for attending, both in person and online. Our next event will be the San Francisco Poster Syndicate event. And please join us for that. There'll be several emails that will be sent out letting you know logistics. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, James. Thank you, David. Thank you, Christina. Yeah, by the way, May Heritage Month, I was fortunate to publish a chapter in the Psychology of Inequity. And it's a book chapter that's related to Asian, the uprising of Asian American hate, which is not a new issue, but it's a uprising one. It's called Asian Americans Rising Up, Speaking Out for Greater Equity. So that came out in 6 months ago. So let me know if you want to leave me information. I'll send you information about anything you might request. My email address is mmock@jfku.edu. Thank you, one and all.